So the way you can clone this basically, so it's like, all right, Victor said, don't do the work on here, make a practice of doing it yourself, and all that stuff. The way you would do this is you click on this guy right here, which is a little Octocat, which is the icon for GitHub. I'm going to close these guys too, since we don't need these tabs open. Okay, and you can see here, this takes us to a repo. So a repo or repository on GitHub basically is just like a folder of code, essentially. So you can see there's a bunch of different files, there's some folders in here and stuff like this, and you can see this .ipnb. .ipnb stands for IPython Notebook, which basically Jupyter Notebook, which is what we'll use. This is going to be confusing, but a Jupyter Notebook is the kind of like the advanced form of IPython. It's kind of like Word equivalent. Unfortunately, also, Jupyter Notebooks can also reference to the actual file itself. So sometimes people say, oh, I have a Jupyter Notebook, and they're talking about the file, not like the program Jupyter Notebook. So it's kind of like people talk about like Microsoft Word and they have a Word doc. It's like if someone just said Word, and Word could either be the application or Word could be the actual file. So just know that kind of terminology. But we actually want to get this this .ipnb, this index.py, and actually work on it, right? So the way we can do this is we're going to go ahead and clone it. So I'm going to show you something called the terminal. And let me just go ahead and clean up my I'm going to share my whole screen, which I don't normally share my whole screen just because my screen is just a huge mess of windows. That's what I'm doing right now. But let me go ahead and share my whole screen, and I'm going to show you how we are going to make this work. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen again, and I'm going to share my whole screen, my whole desktop. And there you go. I have two, for the record, I have two screens. So like you guys are all over here. So I have to kind of like look off the side to see how you guys are doing. But you can see here my whole screen. You can see the Learn Co. You can see I have a Mac, right, going through. And what I'm going to do here is I actually want to clone this guy here. And what we mean by clone basically is just that literally making a copy of this onto your own computer. So this is where if you go into section 2, they'll talk about how to do this process. And I'm going to show you that process first. And then I'm going to point to you guys a different way of doing it. And I'll talk about what this looks like. So real quick though, thumbs up, everyone should have this. Does everyone have a GitHub profile set up? Give me a quick thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down if you haven't set one up yet. Okay, cool. No one's thumbs down. That's good. If you haven't yet, for some chance, make sure you do. Basically, your GitHub's going to be essentially your go-to kind of portfolio collection, stuff like this. So we have this lesson. So remember, we went from here. We clicked on Octocat guy right here, which sent us to this link. And this is the repo that we want to copy or clone. So one thing that people tend to do, and this is what probably puts people in a lot of mistakes, you can go ahead and just clone from here. However, that won't become your repo anymore. It'll actually just be a copy of this repo. And really what you want to do is have your own repo so you can make changes and push it up to and show what you've done basically online on GitHub. So the way you do this is basically you click this fork here, and I can see people are already forked it, which is awesome. You click fork. No, you won't have this option. Basically, it should be your own profile. And what this is doing basically, it's GitHub's way of making a copy that's going to put it onto your repository, or sorry, your profile. So you can see at the top here is the name of my repository. You can actually see Mr. Geislinger, which is my username. And then you can see the actual repository. And you can see at this very bottom here, forked from, and it shows a reference to the original like repo, okay? So then what you can do, once you have this, assuming that this is your repo now, you can go and click clone download. And in general, we'll use HTTPS. That usually tends to be the more common practice. You'll go ahead and copy this guy. I can go just click this button and it copies it. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go open up our terminal and we're going to clone it in the terminal or command line. Quick thumbs up. Who has Windows? All right. Who has, put your thumbs down, who has Mac? Okay. Does anyone have anything different from those two? Okay, two people were raising their hand. Linux? Okay, cool. All right, Linux and Mac will pretty much be the same, command line, terminal, right, that kind of stuff. Windows, unfortunately, you guys are like lower class citizens in like the world of data science sometimes. I'm not saying that you can't get things to work, but sometimes things have a little extra messing around with. So if you are using Windows, you will want to install Git Bash. The instructions on this are in section 2. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead from where you guys are supposed to be, but my suggestion is that all the lessons and all the stuff you do in data science, use Git Bash, or at least a Unix emulator, which if you don't know what that is, use Git Bash. But basically that, yeah.
So would you suggest that instead of doing this on Windows, because I have Anaconda and all that installed, right? But would you suggest that I use Ubuntu on a virtual machine instead?
No, I would say you can still use Windows. Just know that you might come up with some weirder hiccups as you kind of like go through some of the process. Most of the stuff will work perfectly fine. It's just that certain things, for example, later on when we talk about containers like Docker works really well with Unix. Doesn't, like, I don't know what it is, like at least in my experience with Docker and Windows, they just don't match. Like they can technically work, but there's weirder things that happen. But I would say is that in general, the reason why I'll say Unix a lot is because a lot of times as data scientists, you're not usually working on your own local, and I say local machine, local computer. You're usually logging into another computer, and that computer usually is a Unix-based computer, usually Linux. The good thing is that if you have a Mac, you're already using Unix, you don't even know it. If you're using Linux, of course you're using Unix. If you're using Windows, we can emulate it, meaning we can pretend it's Unix, but not quite, and that's what Git Bash does. Okay. So my suggestion, just make sure you use Git Bash, and there might be some other weird kind of quirks that happen with Windows. But anyway, so assuming you have Git Bash or using Mac or Linux, for those 2 people who raised their hands, what we're going to do is just go ahead and open up a terminal. So you can usually just like do a terminal like this, but I have a special one, so I don't have to do that. So you can see I have a little terminal up here. I'm going to just make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. And you can see a little bit, your thing might look a little bit different, but same ideas here. So what we want to do is go ahead and clone this repo. Remember I copied it. Clone this repo into my local machine. So the way I do this simply is just git clone, and then I just went ahead and pasted the URL that I copied. And note that the URL should end with .git. You might be able to do it fine if you copy this guy here, but you might get some weird stuff. So my suggestion is always use this guy as much as possible. And it's the one that ends with .git. That's how you know you got the right one. Okay. So then I go do that. Go ahead and press enter. And you can see here all this little information. It says cloning into, and this is the name of the repo itself. Okay. And so now it says, hey, you got it. Like it's in, you're cloned. Cool. Now it's like, okay, that's cool. But like, how do I know it's actually there? So those of you guys who have Windows, or not Windows, Mac, who gave me those thumbs up, one nice thing that you guys can do, you can actually do open and then just dot. I'll talk about this in the future about what this dot means. But that will actually open up a Finder window. I'm actually going to close these guys because I don't need these. It'll open up a Finder window of where you are. So the terminal really is saying, hey, you live, like this is kind of like your folder structure. This is basically your computer. And essentially what we're doing, these are where all your files are living. So you can see here is that on Windows or on Mac, we actually can pull up and you can see, oh, hey, that's what we want. DSC, what was it called? DSC conditional. So that's what I copied. Note that I have a couple things in here too that just kind of exist. But anyway, we have this one that's newly cloned. But let's say like, oh, I don't have Mac, or I just want to look at what is in this folder. So note that this is showing me I'm in test ground folder, and you can see a little bit on Mac. If you're familiar with Mac, it says testing ground. I can list the files that's in here. So the way to list the files, does anyone know by chance how to list files in the terminal? I see Stephen do ls. I think it's not Jeffrey do something
ls.
Too. Yeah. So ls, yeah. So ls will list their files, list your folders in this wherever you are. So I'm living right now in the testing ground. So we do ls, and you can see DSC welcome intro, and git clone sh. Some quick kind of things that I'm going to show you how to help yourself. You can see a little bit messy here. One thing that I might do, I type in clear, and what clear will do, basically, it won't delete anything. It just basically just removes the stuff that you are looking at. So I can clear, and it just makes it nice and clean so I can start from there. So sometimes you get a long list of stuff, you can just type in clear, and it just makes it nice and neat and easier to see. Also for ls, I like to use ls-l, and these are called flags. So we do like a dash something in the terminal. These are flags. These flags are specific to whatever you're doing. And so people ask me, how do you know what flag to use? You have to essentially already know this on the term, what flags are available to you. They're always different depending on, what you're using and stuff like this. There's ways to look this up, which is man-h, but I'll show that in a second. But ls/l will just list those files. So you can see here, DSC conditionals, DSC welcome intro, git clone, and then also has some information. Oops, copied that by accident. And you can also see some extra information. This is actually the owner. This right here basically is the time it was created or modified, right? Depending on what your settings are. And there's some extra stuff, but it's nice because it's this nice list of items that are in there. So that is, oops, how do you do this? Oh, ls/l. Okay, so I can see, all right, cool. I have this folder in here. I want to go in this folder and actually run some code and actually run the .ipnb. So how do we do this, right? So I need to change my directory, right? Directory is just a folder. How do I, does anyone know how to change a directory in terminal?
CD.
CD, awesome. I love Steven. I see Steven Masai over here, like pantomiming the different letters and stuff like that. For the record, I know American Sign Language. So if you guys ever want to just like do American Sign Language, go for it. All right, so CD, and then after CD is the name of the actual folder. So I can start saying DSC-conditionals. It's super long to type, right? There's a quick trick. Does anyone know the quick trick?
Tab.
Tab, good. If you start typing already what you have and you click tab, it fills it in for you. You don't have to type the whole thing. Awesome, right? So I go to CD. Note that if I do CD and then DS and then tab, my computer's gonna yell at me because it doesn't know which one to pick. It doesn't know to pick DSC welcome or DSC conditionals. So just kind of know that. So anyway, I'm in this folder now, but let's say I wanna make sure I'm actually in this folder, right? I can see it here. I wanna see like where I am, like what working directory am I? What directory am I working in? Does anyone know how to check where you are in the system?
PWD.
Perfect, PWD. And PWD is, I don't remember what the P is, but working directory. So basically the directory you're working on.
Print working directory.
Thank you. Those are some of the things like I just do, and I don't even think about like why it's named this way. So PWD shows you what directory you're in, okay? So this is really useful. Let's say I want to go up like one level. It's like, hey, like, oops, I'm in the wrong one. I can do CD. And then what's really nice, there's two shortcuts. There's either a single dot, which is your current directory. That's why we did open dot, is it open this directory. But if I want to go up one level, like essentially, if you think like in Mac here, I'm over in this folder down here, and I want to go up one level. So like I'm inside here, I want to go up one level. I can do CD ... and that will go me up one level. And you can see here now I'm testing ground, and you can see now if we do PWD, you see testing ground. Okay, and just to emphasize that CD, if I do DS and then try tab, you'll see that the computer yelled at me. It's like, hey, you can't do that. I don't know if you guys can hear that beep, but mine beeps. But if I do CSC.C, it doesn't complete it. In fact, if I tab it again twice, you see the two different options, like, oh, you need to finish off the rest because then it knows what to do. All right, so I'm back in. So now I was like, okay, cool. We navigated, we basically went through here. Now what do you do? Now do you actually want to use Jupyter Notebook? So the way we can use Jupyter Notebook, and this is where, if you've already done this before, just kind of be aware of what you're doing, is that we can do Jupyter and then Notebook. Okay. Note that there's other options like Jupyter Lab. If you have Jupyter Lab installed, you could use Jupyter Lab, but we're just going to use Jupyter Notebook. And what this is going to do, this is going to be a command that opens up this folder in Jupyter Notebook. And you can think of Jupyter Notebook as like Word or something like that. So if I run this now, you'll see it'll print out a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll tell you about this, what's it called? This URL to copy, and you'll see localhost. And it's usually 888, but you might have 8890, 8889, depending how many Jupyter Notebooks you've opened before or other programs that are running on this part. But you could copy this part, but you can also see in the background here is that it actually opened up automatically. So your goal is to get to this point. So give me just a quick thumbs up. Got a little message. There you go. All right. Give me a quick thumbs up if you if you got into the Jupyter Notebook already, like before. Give me a thumbs up if this is complete. You haven't gotten this far before yet. Okay, cool. So it looks like everyone has gotten to this point. Awesome. So good review for people who are watching the recording, but you guys are like masters of this. Just to open up this notebook, you can see here, it's got the little notebook here. I can go and click on this guy, and this will open up. And you can see here, I got all my little stuff here. Cool, cool, right? So now I can actually run this stuff directly on here. So for example, if I do like print, I'm just gonna do pass, and print one. And you can see here, I run this. Cool, right? So we can actually go ahead and run this stuff, play around with it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You guys probably have done this already, right? And nothing too new. Some quick things about Jupyter Notebook, since we have about 10 more minutes. So now we have this cloned and everything like this. To actually go ahead and do some quick kind of things in Jupyter Notebook. One thing you can do is you do Control Enter, and that will run the cell. And you can see this number on the side here, this in and then 10. This is just saying the order that you run it in. So you can see I have like, oh, this is the 15th run, and you can see the execution of like what it output. You can also run this guy here, right? This cell, these is what we call them. And you can see 16, and I can go back to here and go back, and then you can see go through. So you can run things out of order. You can, if you guys have seen, click this run button. You guys might have done this as well. And you'll notice that when I click a run button, it runs it and then goes to the next cell. You can do the same thing by doing Shift Enter. So instead of doing Control Enter like this, if I do Shift Enter, it'll run it and move on to the next cell. Shift Enter, Shift Enter, Shift Enter. Okay. So some nice quick things to know about. If you want to run the whole notebook, like, okay, I wrote all the code out and I just want to run it all at once, you can just do Cell and then Run All. Okay, and that will actually run everything at once. You can see here all of these parts, 31, 32, 33, 34. If, for example, you have though like a mistake, so this right here is not going to like Python's not going to like this. If I do Cell Run All now, so I'll just show you guys a little bit if I run this. Oops, that's what I want. Let's just do that. You can see errors like, oh, that's not improper Python. It's going to give us an error. So if I do Run All now, what's going to happen is going to start from the very top and then run all the way down. And then it's going to get to here and it's going to stop. So if I do Run All now, you'll see that it runs 37, 38, 39, stops here, and then you can see this empty part because this part never ran, basically. It stopped right here before I could run this part. So just kind of know is that if you have something like that, if you see this empty input, it means that it didn't go through. Okay. Does that all make sense to everyone? Cool review. All right. These are all kind of like the quick basics and stuff. All right. Now, one quick thing that you might do is that you'll notice that this is like 38, 39. So for example, if I do like, let's say temperature 85 in, let's say I just go ahead and print. Let me just do print over here. Print temperature. Oh, no, I could tab if I already have it defined. So print temperature like this. And this one should print out what? 85, right? Cool, cool. And then if I do down here, temperature, let's say equals some number like that, right? Okay, so that's temperature 8, you know, was that 100,000? 100,000. Now if I print this guy, will this print 85 or 1,000 or 100,000? Give me a thumbs up for 85, thumbs down for 100,000. Okay. Cool, some people thinking, all right, I think it's gonna be mostly thumbs down. And you guys are right? It was 1,000. So one thing to note is that you might do these kind of things and run things out of order, but just be very aware that like now temperature is at 100,000. So you're gonna have to make sure that things are running out of order. So like sometimes you're like, oh, you know what, things got mixed up. I'm not sure what's here because what happens now, if I go ahead and delete this guy, okay, and I run this guy, right? And let's just say I got rid of this, or we'll keep that in there. But let's say go ahead and start to print 100,000. There's no reference to print 100,000 or temperature being 100,000. So when I do print temperature like this, oops, you can see it's still there. So the problem is that what you might do, you might edit code, but you've already ran it, and you kind of get in these weird spots like, wait, like why is this 100,000? Like I never said this is 100,000. Like, or like I don't see it anywhere. Like what's going on? This is where it's like, oh, it's like maybe ran something from a prior point. You can do kernel and then restart. So this will basically refresh basically everything in little memory in here. You can technically refresh the page, just doing like refresh like you normally would with a web page, but this is the safer option of like making sure it does in fact restart the kernel. And the kernel basically is the thing that, to really simplify it, is basically the thing that actually is running the code, telling it what to do. Your code is saying, hey, kernel, do these things. And so we restart the kernel, it'll forget all that extra stuff that we just did. Okay, so if I do restart here, now if I go ahead and run, for example, if I tried running print temperature, it'll give me an error because like, hey, that I don't know what temperature is. And note that also this is now 1. It's the first execution. So it's as if it started over. Okay, cool. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions about just the basics? No? Cool. Hopefully this feels pretty like Ruth's like, yeah, like Victor, this is going to be an easy, you know, course if this is going to be all I do. But hopefully this kind of gives you some basics and stuff like this, kind of helped out. I'm going to give you some quick pointers for Jupyter Notebook that'll help you edit. For example, let's say he's like, oh, I want to change this to pass to print. I want to do the same thing on each line. You can actually click, and then for Windows, you can hold Control. For Mac, you can hold Command, and you can edit these at the same time. So you can do print, 1. So that can be really useful in like editing very, very quickly, and it's super useful. Another thing is, you guys know what comments are, right? Starting with a hashtag, right? #, octothorpe, whatever you want to call it. If you want to comment this out, like, what, I don't want, let's say I don't want this guy right here, or let's say I don't want this guy. I can just go ahead and comment this out. I can highlight it. And normally I would have to go like, oh, hashtag, and like, oh, that's annoying, right? What you could do is just highlight it and just do Command or Control for Windows or Linux. But you do Command for Mac, \, and that will automatically comment those sections out. You can also uncomment, so you can very quickly comment and uncomment sections of code. So this is really nice when you're trying to get things to work. This isn't necessarily like the best practice to do, like, when you save it and like have a bunch of comment out code, but it's good when you're trying to like iterate and just try to test things out. Okay, cool. I'm trying to think if there's any other really basic stuff I should tell you for Jupyter Notebook that will help you go through the rest of the lessons pretty quickly. One thing you can do is that I mentioned very briefly, if I do print and I want to type out temperature, well, this won't work. I have to run this first. So if I already defined temperature, and now if I go ahead and make a new cell up here, I can do print. And then as like temperature is a long word. I don't want to type it out. I can just press tab and it'll fill out the rest of that part, which is really convenient. If there's a function, you're like, hey, like what does print do? There's something called a doc string that's in Python functions, and you can actually define your own doc strings too. But if you do Shift Tab, this will actually show you a little bit of how this function is used. So this is really, really useful because instead of having to Google everything on here, you can just simply do Shift Tab and it'll show you exactly. And you'll notice here is it gives you a very quick, like what the values you can put in here. If I click this up button here, it'll actually give me the full printout of like what exactly this doc string. So you can see the doc string right here. And this is really useful to very quickly get information, especially complicated functions. You're like, I don't remember exactly what to pass it in. You can simply just press Shift Tab and that will show you the options and some basic stuff. It might answer all your questions, but it's probably going to be a good start. Okay, cool. Yeah, so those are some really basic stuff. I guess one last thing. Yeah, I got a minute left before I have to head out. So another thing too, you can see here is that we have our different cells here. So this right here is code, but these sections are markdown cells. So we can go ahead and click on this and actually edit this directly. So this is markdown, and we can talk about markdown another time. But let's say, for example, you want to change this over to markdown, or let's say you make a new cell. We say, oh, it's not a markdown cell, right? You can see it's code. So this is going to try to execute. You can just go ahead and I don't even know how to do this. Edit, I think you can change it. But what I just do, you click escape. So you notice if it's in the thing, if I'm typing on here, it's green. If I click escape, it's blue. So that you're in edit mode, I can press the letter M. So I click escape to get to blue. I press M, and it changes it to a markdown cell. So it makes it nice and convenient to very quickly change things over. Same thing for like, if I wanted to say, okay, wait, this is actually code. I made the markdown cell. You get to the blue part here and click the letter Y, and that'll make it into code now. So some kind of quick things you can do. If you want to get rid of cells, you can click delete, I think edit, delete. Again, I don't even remember how to do these because I never use these. You can click delete cells and delete that cell, but you can also do, when you're command mode, which is blue, or edit mode, which is blue, you can just do DD and then it deletes the cell. If you accidentally delete a cell, you can press the letter Z and it'll undo it. So yeah, all right. Cool. So that's some basic stuff. We'll go into a lot more next time too. I know I spent a good 30 minutes like walking you through all of the learn stuff and all that stuff. So we'll go more into GitHub, more about Jupyter Notebook, and talk about some basics of Python and stuff like that. This is kind of like, I would say the next couple weeks is a relatively slower week. You guys are probably like, okay, Victor's going through a lot of basics, and then we'll get right into it. So yeah, something to look forward to. But quick thing, if you, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, just one question. So we're working on our own systems locally with our own Python notebooks. What about submitting labs?
Yeah, there is no submit. Don't have to submit. It is all on your own work. This is all honor system. Basically, the only thing you will have to submit are essentially your projects, which will include a blog, and that will only be every 6 weeks. So,
okay.
cool. Awesome. I do have to head up. I did want to mention one thing, and I feel like I forgot it. Oh, I mentioned there is, let's see here. Let's go to the homepage real quick. That's okay. My students will be fine. If I go over to, what was I showing before? Oh, this module playlist. You'll notice I also have a little bit of talked about this copying a repo without a fork. I'll talk about this next time about like why I actually don't suggest using forks for what we're doing here in Learn. But there's an alternative method that we can do, which is essentially making a copy of that clone, but adding it onto your own repo rather than a forked repo. But that's for next time. But you can watch that video right now on here. Okay, cool, everyone. Well, I do have to head out. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining. Remember the About Me survey if you haven't taken it, or if you have taken it and then have that, put in the available time. That would be really helpful. Trying to make sure times work out the best. So the sooner you guys can do that, the sooner I can get the schedule out for next week. All right, and I will see you all tomorrow. Okay, take care.